everybody. Hanu, it's a real pleasure to be sharing the stage with you and to have met you in the last 24 hours. Could you get us started by telling us the thing I'm curious about in my research about you is this, do the most.
Yeah.
Almost a mantra that you use. What does that mean to Hanu? What does that mean to you as a person outside of business?
Well, do the most was a mantra I had to come up with in order to share the stage with you. Coming from where I come from, Nigeria, Africa, the world is different over there. And coupled with my personal life experiences, I lost my parents early on. My dad when I was 8, mom when I was 16. So it was a very harsh reality, so I had to embody do the most in terms of out thinking, out working and out innovating in order to survive in a very harsh environment. And I have seen that doing the most has been a thing that not even me resonates with, but other people. And in my company, that's literally our mantra, and that pushes us every other day to greater heights.
Yeah. And I mean, first million at 20, 13 businesses before you founded Patricia 5 years ago, and loads more firsts whilst in the last 5 years at Patricia, I think including the first ever crypto debit card launched in Africa. What led you into fintech?
Well, it was more so about solving my problems. I didn't think of fintech as fintech at the time. Because when the idea for Patricia came on, it came on because I tried to sell a gift card online and I got ripped off. So Patricia actually started off on WhatsApp, where I was dealing on WhatsApp. WhatsApp was our MVP. But along the line, I realized that I could use technology to scale, technology to reach more customers, have a better user experience, and that was how my curiosity made me dabble into fintech. And I realized that, we could do the same thing we're doing now, but 10 times over using technology. And that was where fintech came into the picture.
And I know I've heard you mention previously that you actually learned about the need for crypto. You had feedback from your customers, from people that were already using the platform.
Yeah.
Initially, that's what sort of brought the need or the possibilities crypto could present. Is that customer centricity is something that's super important to you? How does that manifest itself now as a startup that, is the pressure to grow, the pressure to deliver and to expand globally? How do you keep good customers at the center of what it is you're doing?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question that entrepreneurs have to face as businesses begin to scale, because there are two sides to the table. There is the first side where you have to listen to your customers. So my company, Patricia, is right now a crypto exchange, but that was not what we started off at. We were actually a gift card exchange. But along the line, our customers started asking us about Bitcoin, about Ethereum, and this was in 2017 when this was a very novel idea. And I realized that we were losing so much customers because we couldn't meet their need. So we had to pivot the company from a gift card company to a crypto exchange. And that saw us have tremendous growth. But at the same time, there is an existential crisis for entrepreneurs, because I think Henry Ford said it best when he said, if I asked my consumers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Yeah.
And Henry Ford went ahead to create and revolutionize the car and automobile industry. Same thing with Steve Jobs. When back then in the heyday, everyone was making styluses with touchscreen, and Steve Jobs asked the question, why do we need styluses when we have fingers? So speaking to consumers, they would give you feedback, but as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, it is really on you to be able to take that feedback and create original ideas and turn into 0 to 1 concepts.
Yeah. And I guess that idea of balance between push and pull, listening to what consumers or customers want, what's possible, and then also the other side is, I guess the incumbents, the regulators, what's actually possible to deliver into the hands of users. Is that's something that everybody's watching play out, especially now across the African continent, that sort of balance between the fintechs? How's that working for you? How is that playing out for Patricia?
Well, the regulatory scene in Africa today is still very young. There is still a lot of learnings to come into the space. So right now, everybody, especially in the Web3 and the blockchain space, we are literally thinking outside the box, thinking outside the confines of regulation, because really there is no regulation in Africa today. So we have to develop concepts like peer-to-peer transactions, having concepts where consumers can consummate transactions within themselves, as opposed to going through traditional banking rails. So it's novel, but it's coming up really quick.
And I know that when we caught up before today, we spoke about who is in that room, or who are on those panels, who are on those committees that are making decisions, making changes, making suggestions about how the government, how the regulators assist and work alongside new tech companies. How do you feel about that process at the moment? Who's in the room? Are the right people? Is there enough collaboration taking place?
Well, I'd say the collaboration isn't exactly where it needs to be. The regulators are still figuring things out by themselves, and it doesn't bring everybody to the table, and it means that some things will be missed, some things will be omitted, as we have seen. So in Nigeria, the central bank created a CBDC called Naira, that is supposed to be a blockchain-enabled technology, but it's not. So inclusion is not where it needs to be, and we need that for the industry to thrive. We need that for Africa to move forward. Kind of like what CZ said yesterday at the opening session, where he said that there needs to be a fine line between protecting consumers and at the same time allowing innovation to succeed. And that's the balance that we need to see for the ecosystem to take the next step.
And are we seeing it in some areas, perhaps more than others? Are we seeing that happening, or are we needing that to develop completely? Because I know that there's obviously some huge success stories emerging out of Africa and going global in the fintech space. So it's happening on some level, or at the moment are we bypassing the regulation conversation?
Yeah. So I think it is happening in some countries, really, like countries like South Africa. They are very innovative. They are very forward-thinking. Countries like Kenya, they have an open outlook towards blockchain and crypto, and we need to see more of these countries. I wish Nigeria was like that. Nigeria has over 200 million people, and that population alone, it's amazing, and wonders can happen. But I predict that as more regulation happens around the world, the government will begin to see the value and the utility that crypto and blockchain brings to the African space, and we would see more adoption from them.
Yeah. And then just taking the conversation back, I guess, to thinking about the future of fintech in Africa, which I guess is the focus of this panel. The areas that would seem to be the biggest opportunities, or the areas of focus: investment, talent, innovation, and opportunity to actually get things into the hands of consumers that don't have them yet. As a business, Patricia, you've not gone down the traditional route of funding, have you, to say? And I think I even heard something where you said you didn't realize, there was one point where you thought, I didn't realize this community, this ecosystem, these incubators were around me. You just built it, did it yourself, focused on that profitability and customer acquisition. Would you do anything different now, if you did know that community was around you, and how important is it for entrepreneurs across the continent to be supported in that way?
Okay, well, backstory to this question. So Patricia was founded by myself in 2017, and till now we are bootstrapped. We have never raised funds before, and for many reasons. Back then I was just focused on building. And I built a company from 0 transactions to last year. We processed over $500 million in transaction volumes. We have over 100 people in the company, and we're in 4 countries in Africa. And would I do it differently? I don't think I would do it differently, right? Because I had a lot of crazy ideas, and I needed the freedom to explore. Case in point, in 2019, we processed around $8 million in transaction volume for the entire year. But in 2020, we had a huge leapfrog from $8 million to $300 million. And that year was a very disruptive year for myself and for the company. If I sat down with investors and told them what I was going to do to get to that point, the kind of ideas I had, I'm not sure they would have signed off on it. And it was COVID year also, so it was very tricky because nobody was innovating, everybody was taking a step back, everybody was laying off. But at Patricia, I did the exact opposite. I spent almost all the money we had on marketing because I realized that everybody's going to be at home and everybody's going to be in their phones or watching TV. And we grew by 500,000 customers just in the COVID year alone. Where my competition at the time were laying off people, which was the norm, and they had investors. I did the exact opposite because I had some sort of freedom. So I don't think I would do it differently. Yeah.
So there is obviously Africa is attracting, especially in the fintech space, is attracting external VC funding, as eyes are on the prize and on the potential for growth, which is significant. I think 70% of all sub-Saharan Africans under the age of 30, the potential for growth is humongous. Is it needed? Do you think the investment externally is needed? You've proven it's possible with a little bit of a catalyst from the pandemic and the need to digitalize, but is it necessary?
I think it's necessary. I think it's 100% necessary. Just because I did it one way doesn't mean that that's the only way it can be done. I think it's necessary because lots of African founders do not even know where to begin. There is no access. I'm very opportune to even be on the stage with you today. I was at the speaker forum yesterday and I bumped into some kids and they were part of a Toronto program called TSK. And this program basically brings them from high school and puts them into technology where they're able to jump into whatever they're passionate about. And this particular kid was building something around human genes. And that was really fascinating for me to see a 16-year-old kid having a startup. He's able to build a product. With that level of access, is going to change things if we had that back in Africa. So I think funding is important. I think access is important. We have a lot of intelligent, bright people, but there is no access. One of the quotes I really love the most is a quote that says, "What if the cure of cancer is stuck in an uneducated mind?" So how do we bridge that gap? How do we even out the playing field? How do we bring more access back home to Africa? That is the big question.
And I think also awareness of access, also awareness and the work that you do. I know that Patricia has quite a big presence sponsoring different events, sponsoring sports teams. That's also got to be helping draw people into areas like fintech, where there is that global. Is that on your mind when you're doing that, when you're going into these deals and sponsorship deals?
Yes. So I think I can actually say that Patricia influenced or brought about influencer marketing into Nigeria. So I'll tell you a short story. When I started Patricia in 2017, of course, in the spirit of do the most, I got a small office, I hired 2 staffs. 2 months down the line, no transactions, no business. I was down to like my last $150. And I was thinking, what do I do? How do I turn this business around? Because this was the last money I had, and I had to pay staff in the next couple of days. What do I do? Then I had an aha moment. In university, there was a celebrity who came to my school. His name was Olamide, and he dyed his hair brown. 2 weeks later, almost half of my university had dyed their hair brown. And I was like, what can make all of these people dye their hair brown? Even if you paid me, I wouldn't dye my hair brown. And I realized the influence the celebrities had on people. So I thought, okay, I had $150, what do I do? That guy is obviously too big, I can't afford him, but I can find the next best thing. And I found an upcoming comedian, I paid him the money, and I said, look, make a content for me and post on Instagram. Bear in mind, this was 2017. Instagram had not even kicked off at the time. So he made the content, he put it out there, and at the end of the day, Patricia had made $350 in profits. And that day was arguably the best day of my life because I realized that this was going to be my future. Like this, I'm going to die here, put my shoes here, sleep here.
Yeah.
Nothing was going to change that. And that was how I realized that influencer marketing was a thing. And since then, we just kept on doing that. So similar to what you have in the US, like the Super Bowl, in Africa, we have the Big Brother Nigeria show. And we sponsored that. And that was really one of the major breakthroughs we had as a business.
Yeah. You're just picking up on the fact that you said that was the moment you knew this was going to be your future, this entrepreneurial journey,
Yeah.
and thinking about the comment you've made many times that crypto is the future. It's going to take a long time for us to get there,
Yeah.
and there needs to be adaptations in every facet, from the regulators. There needs to be understanding and acceptance from end users, from consumers, from the incumbent fintech players. But I know that when we spoke, you mentioned that the Bill Gates Letterman moment was a big one for you.
Yeah, it was.
Especially that it was in 1995, the year when you were born. So thinking of that future, and given that we've got 90 seconds or so left, what is that future what is that Letterman moment for you? What would you like us to go away thinking that'll never happen, and it does when it comes to crypto and fintech?
Well, to piggyback off your question, right? I met Bill Gates 2 weeks ago, and it was a fantastic moment for me because I admire him a lot. He wrote a letter in 1995 called The Tidal Wave, where he basically predicted what the internet would be. And October 1st this year, I published my own letter called The State of Blockchain in Africa, predicting what I think Africa's future would be in blockchain. And for me, it's very simple. Crypto and blockchain is not bounded by geography. It's one technology that you can tap into as long as you have a phone and you have internet. So it means that it's something that Africa can dominate. Right now, Nigeria is the 4th country with the largest usage of crypto in the world. And that is no regulation, no support, no infrastructure. It's basically kids at home on WhatsApp using this technology. So I foresee Africa becoming the hub of crypto in Africa. I foresee Africa leading the conversation on metaverse. I foresee Africa having indigenous VCs that can not just lead seed rounds or early stage rounds, but go up to lead as high as Series D and late stage. I predict a lot more unicorns coming from Africa. Right now, we have less than 5 unicorns in Africa. I predict having more than 100 unicorns in Africa, and I predict Africa doing the most in crypto and blockchain.
Great. Thank you. I believe you're on that note. Thanks, Hani. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.